There once lived a wealthy woman named Mama Adanna who owned the finest house on Mango Street. Her compound had bright walls, a beautiful garden full of flowers, and rooms that were always clean and comfortable. Many people wanted to rent rooms in her house because it looked so perfect from the outside. But there was something very strange that nobody could understand. Every tenant who moved into Mama Adanna's house would fail in life within 6 months. Young couples would lose their jobs, students would fail their exams, and business people would lose all their money. One by one, they would pack their bags and leave the beautiful house, poorer and sadder than when they arrived. The neighbors whispered about it in the market, wondering what curse had fallen upon Mama Adanna's property. Yet, Mama Adanna would just smile her cold smile and said, perhaps they were just unlucky people. Then she would quickly find new tenants to fill the empty rooms. Chioma was a hardworking young woman who had just finished her university studies and found a good job as a teacher in the city. She was searching for a place to stay when her friend told her about Mama Adanna's beautiful house with rooms for rent. Chioma went to see the house and was amazed by how lovely everything looked. The rent was fair, and Mama Adanna seemed like a kind, motherly woman with a gentle voice and welcoming smile. You will be very comfortable here, my daughter, Mama Adanna said as she showed Chioma the room. Chioma noticed that the landlady wore many expensive beads around her neck and wrist. There was a strange sweet smell that followed her everywhere. Despite feeling a tiny bit uneasy, Chioma decided to take the room because it was perfect for her needs. She moved in the following week, excited to start her new life on the city. For the first 2 weeks, everything seemed wonderful in Chioma's new home. She would wake up early, go to her teaching job, and return to her comfortable room in the evening. But then, strange things started happening. Chioma began having terrible nightmares every single night, and she would wake up feeling more tired than when she went to sleep. Her students who used to love her classes suddenly became difficult and disrespectful for no reason. Even stranger, whenever Chioma cooked food in the shared kitchen, it would taste bitter no matter what recipe she followed. Her clothes began to tear easily, and her things she owned would mysteriously break or disappear. Chioma noticed that Mama Adanna would often stand outside her door late at night, just listening and sometimes whispering words that Chioma couldn't understand. The land tenants in the house also looked tired and defeated, walking around like shadows of themselves. One night, Chioma woke up at midnight because she heard soft footsteps in the hallway. She quietly got up and peeked through a crack in her door to see what was happening. To her shock, she saw Mama and Dana moving from door to door of all the tenants' room, sprinkling some kind of powder on each doorstep while chanting strange words under her breath. The landlady eyes seemed to glow in the darkness, and her face looked completely different, hard and mean, instead of kind and motherly. Chioma's heart beat fast with fear, but she forced herself to stay still and watch. After Mama and Dana finished with all the doors, she went into a small room at the end of the hallway that was always kept locked. Chioma heard more chanting and saw a strange red light glowing from under the door. When everything finally became quiet, Chioma went back to bed, but she couldn't sleep. She now understood what something evil was happening in this house, and she needed to find out what it was. The next morning, Chioma decided to talk to the oldest woman in the neighborhood, Mama Ngozi, who sold vegetables in the market. Old people always knew the history and secret of every place. When Chioma asked about Mama and Dana's house, Mama Ngozi's face became very serious. She pulled Chioma aside where no one else could hear them and began to speak in a low voice. My child, that house has been cursed for 7 years now, Mama Ngozi whispered. Mama and Dana practice dark arts. She makes sacrifices using the good fortunes of her tenants to maintain her own wealth and power. Every person who lives in that house has their success and blessings stolen from them through evil means. Many have tried to stop her, but she's very powerful and clever. Chioma felt cold all over as she listened. Mama Ngozi held her hand and said, If you want to break free, you must be very brave and very smart, my daughter. Chioma decided she needed to investigate more to understand exactly what Mama Adanna was doing. One Saturday afternoon, when the landlady went to the market, Chioma pretended to be relaxing in the garden while actually searching for clues. She noticed that certain plants in the beautiful garden looked dead and black, while others were unnaturally bright and healthy. Under a large mango tree, she found strange markings drawn on the soil that had been carefully hidden with leaves. As Chioma dug a little deeper near these markings, she found several small clothes bags buried in the ground. Her hand shook as she opened one and found personal items inside: a student ID card, some hair, a photograph, and pieces of torn clothing. Chioma realized this must belong to former tenants. Suddenly, she heard Mama Adanna's voice calling her name from the house. Chioma quickly covered up the hole and ran towards the house, her mind racing with what she had discovered. That evening, Chioma decided to talk to the three other tenants in the house. There was Emeka, a young man who had lost his promising job at the bank; Blessing, a student who kept failing her exam despite being brilliant; and Mr. Okafor, a trader whose business had collapsed. At first, they were scared to talk about their problems, but when Chioma shared what she had seen, they all began to open up about the strange things happening to them too. I woke up with marks on my body that I can't explain, Blessing said quietly. Emeka added, my family thinks I am going mad because I keep having visions of Mama and Dana standing over me at night. Mr. Okafor revealed that all his business contacts had mysteriously turned against him after he moved into the house. Together, they realized they were all victims of Mama Adanna's evil practice. We must work together to stop her and break this curse, Chioma said firmly. But we need to be very careful, or she will know what we are planning. Chioma remembered that Mama Ngozi had mentioned that many people had tried to stop Mama Adanna before. She decided to find out who these people were and what had happened to them. She went back to the market and asked Mama Ngozi to tell her everything. The old woman invited Chioma to her home that evening, where she shared the full story over hot tea. Mama Dana was once a regular woman who struggled with poverty. Mama Ngozi explained, 15 years ago, she met a powerful but even spiritualist who taught her dark magic in exchange for her soul. She learned how to steal the blessings and good fortunes from others to make herself wealthy. The house she lived in was built with money from this evil practice. Her power comes from a special shrine she keeps in that locked room, and as long as that shrine stands, she will continue to prosper while others suffer. Chioma listened carefully, knowing that this information was the key to stopping Mama and Dana's once and for all. She gathered all the tenants for a secret meeting in Emeka's room when Mama Adanna went to visit her sister in another town. They spoke in whispers, planning carefully how they would expose and stop the evil landlady. Chioma shared everything Mama Ngozi had told her about the shrine in the locked room. They all agreed that they needed to get into that room and destroy whatever evil thing Mama Adanna was using to harm them. But how will we get the key? Blessing asked nervously. She always keeps it on a chain around her neck. Emeka had an idea. His cousin was a locksmith who would make a copy of any key from just a photograph. Mr. Okafor suggested that he would distract Mama and Dana while someone took a quick picture of the key. It was risky, but they had no choice. They decided to act in 3 days when Mama and Dana would be hosting a women's group meeting, and there would be enough people around to provide cover for their plan. On the day of the meeting, the house was filled with women from Mama and Dana's church group. Mr. Okafor pretended to have an urgent problem with his rent payment and called Mama and Dana aside to discuss it in the parlor. While she was distracted and reaching for her ledger book, Chioma moved closer with her phone hidden in her hand. With a quick and steady movement, she took several clear photos of the key hanging on the chain around Mama and Dana's neck. That same evening, Emeka rushed to his cousin's workshop with the photos. The locksmith studied the image carefully and said he could make a copy, but it would take until the next day. The tenants could barely sleep that night, knowing they were so close to uncovering Mama Adanna's secret. Early the next morning, Emeka collected the duplicate key, hiding it carefully in his pocket. Now they just needed to wait for the right moment when Mama Adanna would leave the house long enough for them to investigate the locked room. Their opportunity came 2 days later. Mama Adanna announced she was going to the city to buy supplies and would be gone for at least 3 hours. The moment her car drove away, all four tenants gathered at the locked door with trembling hands. Emeka inserted the copy key with a soft click. The door opened. What they saw inside made them gasp in horror and disbelief. The small room was filled with candles, animal bones, and strange clay pots. On the walls hung photographs of all the former tenants, each picture marked with red symbols. In the center of the room stood a dark wooden shrine covered with dry blood and surrounded by their personal belongings, items that had gone missing from their rooms. Most disturbing of all was a large book filled with names, dates, and detailed notes about each tenant's suffering. "This is worse than we imagined," Chioma whispered. "She has been documenting how she destroys people's lives." "We need to destroy all of this right now," working quickly before Mama and Dana could return. The tenants began dismantling the evil shrine. Chioma gathered all the photographs and the books of names while Emeka and Mr. Okafor broke the clay pot, which released horrible smelling liquids. Blessing found their personal items that had been stolen and stored in various corners of the room. They poured holy water that Mama Ngozi had given them over everything and said prayers of protection. As they walked, strange things began happening in the room. The candles would relight themselves. Cold winds blew through, even though the windows were closed, and they heard angry whispers that seemed to come from the walls. But the four tenants held strong, encouraging each other and continuing to destroy everything connected to Mama and Dana's dark practice. Finally, they smashed the wooden shrine itself into pieces. The moment it broke, they all felt something shift in the air, like a heavy blanket had been lifted from their shoulders. They quickly cleaned up all evidence of the evil items and locked the room again. When Mama Adanna returned home that evening, she immediately sensed that something was wrong. Her face became pale, and she rushed straight to the locked room. The tenants watched nervously from different parts of the house as she opened the door and screamed in rage at what she found. Even though they had cleaned it out, she could feel that her shrine had been destroyed and her power had been broken. Mama and Dana stormed through the house, going from room to room, demanding who had entered her private space, who dared to touch her things. She shouted, her voice no longer sweet and motherly, but harsh and threatening. Her eyes were wide, and the beautiful mask she had worn for so long was completely gone. The tenant had prepared for this moment. They stood together in the hallway, and Chioma spoke up bravely. "We know what you have been doing. Mama and Dana, we know how you have been stealing people's blessings and destroying their lives. It ends today." Mama and Dana laughed, a cold and bitter sound that echoed through the house. "You foolish children. Think you can stop me? I have been doing this for 15 years. I am too powerful for you." She raised her hand as if to cast some kind of spell on them, chanting words in a language they didn't understand. But nothing happened. Her powers no longer worked because the shrine that gave her strength had been destroyed. The landlady's face twisted in shock and anger as she realized her magic was gone. Mr. Okafor stepped forward with his phone in his hand. "We've recorded everything in that room before we destroy it. We have photographs of the shrine, the stolen items, and the books where you wrote down how you were harming all your tenants. We are ready to take this evidence to the authority and to the community." Mama and Dana fell to her knees, suddenly looking much older and weaker than before. The evil that had sustained her was no more, and now she would have to face the consequences of her action. The next day, Chioma and the old tenant called a meeting with the community elders and invited everyone in the neighborhood to attend. Mama Ngozi stood with them as they reviewed everything about Mama and Dana's evil practice. They showed photographs, the stolen items they had recovered, and the book documenting years of harm done to innocent people. The crowd was shocked and angry to learn the truth about why so many good people had suffered after moving into that beautiful house. Former tenants who had lost everything came forward to share their stories. One man told how he had lost his job and his wife had left him within months of moving into Mama Adanna's house. A woman explained how her daughter had become mysteriously sick and failed all her exams while living there. Story after story revealed the same pattern of destruction. The community elders confronted Mama Adanna, who could no longer deny what she had done. She confessed everything, hoping for mercy, but the damages she had caused to so many lives was too great to ignore. The elders decided that Mama Adanna must face traditional justice for her crimes against the community. They stripped her of her title as a respected landlady and demanded that she return all the items she had stolen from her tenants over the years. They also required her to pay compensation to every person she had harmed through her evil practice. Mama Adanna is now powerless and disgraced, had to sell most of her properties to make this payment. The authorities were also called and they investigated the house thoroughly. They found evidence of other illegal activities that Mama Adanna had been involved in. She was arrested and charged with fraud and practicing harmful traditions. The beautiful house on Mango Street, which had been a place of suffering for so many years, was taken away from her. The community elders decided that the house should be cleansed by spiritual leaders and eventually given to help homeless families who needed shelter. After Mama Adanna was removed from the house, something wonderful began happening to Chioma and the other tenants. Emeka received a call offering an even better job than the one he had lost. Blessing suddenly found that studying became easy again, and she passed all her exams with excellent marks. Mr. Okafor business contact mysteriously returned, apologizing for how they had treated him and wanting to work with him again. Chioma herself received a promotion at her house and was given recognition for being an outstanding teacher. The nightmare stopped, the food tasted delicious again, and her belongings stopped breaking mysteriously. It was as if all the good fortune that had been stolen from them was now returning doubled and tripled. The four tenants remained good friends, having gone through such a difficult experience together. They made a promise to always help others who might be suffering from similar evil practice in prison. Mama Ndana had a lot of time to think about what she had done. Without her powers and her wealth, she was just an ordinary woman who had made terrible choices. She began to understand the pain she had caused to so many innocent people who had only wanted a place to live. The faces of all the tenants she had harmed haunted her dreams, and she felt deep shame for trading her humanity for temporary riches. One day, she sent a message through her lawyer asking if Chema would come visit her. Chioma hesitated at first, but Mama Ngozi encouraged her to go, saying that forgiveness was important for healing. When they met, Mama Dana broke down in tears. I am so sorry for everything I did to you and the others. I was blinded by greed and forgot that wealth gained through other people's suffering is no wealth at all. I have lost everything, my respect, my freedom, my peace. I only pray that someday I can find redemption. Chioma listened quietly, feeling both pity and sadness for how low the once proud woman had fallen. Chioma and the other former tenants decided to share their story widely so that others would not fall victim to similar situations. They spoke at communities, gatherings, on local radio programs, and even created a group to help people identify and escape from harmful living situations. Their message was clear: if your life suddenly starts falling apart after moving into a new place, pay attention to the signs and don't be afraid to investigate. Young people across the city began to be more careful about where they choose to live, asking questions and trusting their instincts when something felt wrong. Mama Ngozi helped them compile a list of warning signs. Landlord who seems too interested in their personal items, unusual rituals performed around the compound, other tenants who all seemed depressed or unsuccessful, and rooms that felt unnatural cold or uncomfortable. Their awareness campaign saved many people from suffering the same fate they had experienced. The community became stronger as people looked out for one another and refused to stay silent about evil practice. Years later, The house on Mango Street became known throughout the community for a completely different reason. After being properly cleansed and blessed, it was turned into a shelter for young people who were struggling to start their lives in the city. Chioma herself, who had become a successful school principal, helped manage the shelter alongside other community volunteers. Every person who stayed there was supported, encouraged, and protected. The story of how four brave tenants stood up against an evil landlady became a legend that parents told their children. It taught important lessons about courage, unity, and the truth that evil can never be permanently triumph over good. Mama Adanna eventually completed her prison sentence and lived quietly in a small village, trying to make amends for her past. She never regained her wealth or status, but she learned that true richness comes from having a clean conscience and treating others with kindness. As for Chioma, Emeka, Blessing, and Mr. Okafor, they all went on to live successfully and blessed lives, always remembering that their victory came not just from their own bravery, but from their willingness to stand together against injustice. Remember, success built on the suffering of others will never last, but blessings end through us.